So cosmetic acupuncture uses very thin, sterile needles on your face, which create a micro trauma. And when we take those needles out, it stimulates the body's healing response. So it has to send more fresh blood to the area, bringing red blood cells to the area, white blood cells to the area, right? Which kill any kind of like free radicals or bacteria that might be under the skin. Most importantly, that micro trauma created by all these like tiny holes, they need to be repaired. And the only thing that can repair them is a protein, and that protein is collagen. So the needles are naturally bringing collagen to your face, and we're controlling where it's going.
Hello and welcome to Nourish. My name is Kasha and I'm a holistic counselor and first-year doctoral student studying acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. My mission with this podcast is to share the stories of inspiring humans who have discovered that elusive state of balance between the Western concept of success with more Eastern philosophies of inner knowing and spirituality. Think yin and yang and flow. Now, these two do not need to be separate, but I know firsthand how difficult it can be to reconcile them. As a Silicon Valley burnout SKP myself, teaser, I left the tech world after 10 years of a thriving career in product management. I want to share the stories that I wish I had heard when I was struggling to find that balance and flow myself. On this podcast, we'll cover topics on spirituality, authentic career and relationships, slow living, mindfulness, alternative healing, concepts from psychology, and stories of transformation via traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. We'll also provide you with the tools to truly integrate both sides of your yin and yang. My hope is that these interviews can inspire you to rethink your own approach to mental, physical, and spiritual well-being. And if you are struggling, find your way back to authentic alignment. So, sit back, relax, and ground yourself back home, my love. Now let's get started. Hi, loves. Welcome back to Nourish. Today's episode is absolutely fire. And if I'm being truly honest, I got a bit starstruck speaking with my next guest, Amrit Singh, registered acupuncturist, healthcare professional of the year, and a Chinese medicine queen. Amrit has been working with women and their health for over a decade. She's an acupuncturist focusing on cosmetic acupuncture, fertility, and digestive issues, and she's really been able to translate concepts from traditional Chinese medicine for a mainstream audience online. Amrit has a Diploma of Acupuncture from the Institute of Traditional Medicine in Toronto, as well as an extended education, which she has acquired in Beijing, Tokyo, San Francisco, New York, and London. She also has taught numerous workshops for aspiring acupuncturists on cosmetic acupuncture, and she has some incredible apprenticeships. So I encourage you to check out my show notes for her full bio. Now, today's episode, we dive into it, y'all. Amrit translates concepts from traditional Chinese medicine, such as qi, how acupuncture works, and really explains the difference between patterns versus diagnoses. We talk about Amrit's path to acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine, and skin health, including Amrit's point of view on Botox as well as alternatives, and why smoothies and salads might be doing you more harm than good. Unpopular opinion. Finally, we definitely dive into some tips for acupuncture students and really so much more. This is a jam-packed episode, so without further ado, let's dive on in.
All right. So we have so much to cover, but I want to start with a question that I ask each and every guest that I have on the podcast. And that is, what are 3 words that you would use, not work related, unless you feel like they're actually your work and your life are just perfectly balanced and in flow, that you would use to describe yourself?
Oh, wow. Not work related. That's a good little trick you put in there. Spiritual. I was gonna say hardworking. Um, young at heart, even though I know that's not really a word, it's more like a phrase. And I would say understanding.
I love that. And I will say it's interesting because this is the first time that we're obviously meeting, not so much in person, but at least virtually. And those words slash phrases, I feel like that comes across in your online presence. So I just want to let you know. All right. So we have, a list to go through here. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I want to actually take us back to the basics and hear from you, though, because we do have some listeners who perhaps are not familiar with traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture. Can you give us a quick overview of, for those who are completely new to this space, what is traditional Chinese medicine? What is acupuncture?
Yeah, so I would say in the most simplest forms, in the way I describe it, Chinese medicine and acupuncture is a type of medicine, that's been on this planet for 2,000, 3,000 plus years. Acupuncture works by using the needles to, I kind of say, open up light switches on your body. So you have some kind of problem, some kind of dysfunction of, let's say, an organ system or some kind of issue. We're just going to turn on the light switches that are going to help balance that dysfunction out. That's the easiest way that I can explain acupuncture to people. You are changing the way your organs function by using needles, and it's just changing the way that they work together. That's it.
I love that. And in your practice, and I guess throughout your education, now as you kind of reflect back at this whole medicine holistically, without using a better word, what do you think is really unique about how Chinese medicine approaches health, wellness, like well-being,
Oh,
or also disease and dysfunction,
so
actually, but
much.
like, I guess, which would be the opposite?
Um, it looks at everybody as an individual. I think that's so unique. You can have a full day of patients and everybody can come in with a headache and it's a different type of treatment for everybody. So I think that's really special about it. I think also what's really special about it is that it coming from China, if you think about it, it like kind of like anthropologically, but also through climate. China has a lot of climate that's similar to North America and Europe, right? Some places are really hot, some places are really cold. So if you really understand Chinese medicine, like, you understand the 6 phases of cold and the 4 of heat, for example, it relates to our climate here very well. So the medicine is very transferable to a lot of cultures and climates around the world, right? As opposed to Ayurvedic medicine, right? I'm Indian. And so, I'm not blinded by it, but it's very specific to a type of climate because the medicine only came out of one area of the world that was pretty much the same kind of climate. But with China, there's many different climates. And so the medicine as a whole can be applicable to a lot of people.
So I have so many follow-up questions to that, but I don't even know where to start. But one thing that comes to mind, because I know that we have a pretty predominantly Western audience, but not only, actually, I will call that out, that listens to this podcast. And I know that most of the folks in the West are very familiar with like Western allopathic medicine. And Chinese medicine, especially for me, going through this education system right now, views the body, as you mentioned, like, each person is seen as an individual. And the approach to diagnosing disease is just so different. How how are you able to kind of like reconcile what you perhaps learned from, I don't even know, like our studies in high school and like early college, let's say, of like Western science versus what's kind of being introduced from the perspective of Chinese medicine? And that's something that I personally actually struggled with a little bit, especially last semester. So I'd love to hear your process through that.
I struggled with that in school too, when we even had to learn more of the like Western physiology. And I would be like, why are we learning this? Like, just give me all and every bit of Chinese medicine that you can. And I would say that okay, this might help you, but when you start really practicing, you meet so many people and you will hear so many life stories from people. To me, it's the best part of doing this as a career. And every little bit of information you've accumulated in your lifetime will apply. So I was like, why are we learning pharmaceuticals? And it used to drive me crazy. And then when I got out there, it's like, well, yeah, we do live in a Western country where, yes, allopathic medicine is dominant. And that's how majority of the people are communicating and how they understand their bodies. So now it's up to us to find the connection of, this is what you understand, and this is Chinese medicine's point of view. Hydrochloric acid and enzymes, stomach fire. So find the parallels to explain. I think that's like really the best way to make your peace with having to learn and understand it, and then sharing and bringing it back.
I love that explanation, actually. And I feel like that is something that you do so well in terms of educating the public on how to connect these two, because there are, I mean, the medicine, like Chinese medicine, is so complex and in many ways very different from allopathic medicine and like a lot of Western science. And so they don't always match like one to one. Like, what do you typically do in those cases?
Firstly, I just remembered one more thing I wanted to say that I love about Chinese medicine is that there's not really a diagnosis, right? Like, you have a pattern. And I feel like the difference of the word pattern versus diagnosis is huge, because when you have a diagnosis, it's like you feel like you have that forever. But in Chinese medicine, you have a word pattern, and it can change every day and it can change every week until the pattern is no more.
So, for those who don't know, what is a pattern? Could you familiarize our listeners with what is exactly viewed, a pattern in Chinese medicine?
I would say your pattern is it is the way we would say a diagnosis is. It's just that it's not permanent. So pattern is just what's showing up, just like you can see the pattern of anything in the world, right? So what's showing up, it seems that, oh, you get a headache every time you get your period. Okay, so you might have a liver qi stagnation issue. That's your pattern. Your liver stagnates even more around your period because your liver qi is not flowing, and that's your pattern. It's just what's showing, and you're just constantly trying to find these patterns and put them together like pieces of a puzzle. And then it's like, okay, now we know what the puzzle is. So like, let's just make it one piece and flow together. And then it's like, okay, let's move liver qi and maybe reduce heat or something like that.
So you mentioned another word that I think comes up for a lot of people who are introduced to acupuncture, Chinese medicine, and that is qi. And qi is obviously very tightly related to these patterns. Could you share with us what exactly is qi? Like, how do you translate it for somebody that's coming into your office confused about it?
Yeah, so depending on the person, I kind of have a few go-to records that I replay. I'll just sometimes say chi is energy, and some people just get that. Sometimes if it's more of an emotional condition, I'll be like, chi is your emotions. You can't see it, but you can feel it and you know something's going on. Chi is just kind of like something that's all around you and us and in us. It's like you could say it's like a vibe. Sometimes you just know about things. But mainly I just do say it's your energy and how it's functioning, moving and collecting in your body. And we're just with acupuncture trying to move that around fluidly, evenly.
So I just love how you explained and like connected the dots between like chi and energy and your emotions right there, because I feel like that's something that for so many people does not feel natural to really imagine that, even though maybe they feel it to be true.
There has to be something that people understand, no matter how maybe Western you are. Because sometimes I like, for example, with sports, right? Like athletes will be like, oh, I love playing at home because our fans are there cheering. It's like, okay, well, cheering's just sound, but they're cheering for you. So you're feeling their energy. It's giving you energy. And so now you want to play better. So like, even if you're like so scientific and you hear athletes say that and you're like, oh my God, yeah, my team's going to win because such and such wants to play well because look what he just said. It's like, well, they're just really saying that the energy's there. That's what else is it? If it's just the athlete's skill, then they could play anywhere. Fans or no fans, or playing with a bunch of rabbits everywhere, whatever, right? Like it doesn't matter then.
So I wanted to ask you, you are obviously the encyclopedia, as I mentioned, of Chinese medicine. I could use all these terms, right? So how did you discover Chinese medicine, and like what was your path to this medicine and practicing acupuncture?
Yeah. So I fell on the ice in Winnipeg really badly a long time ago. And I couldn't get up. Like I wasn't paralyzed, but I guess I got the wind knocked out of me and I didn't really play sports. So I didn't know what that felt like. And I was in a lot of pain for a very long time. Like I couldn't like sit on like soft sofas. I couldn't put my arms above my head. Like my body was like locked up, and they couldn't find anything, of course. And so I moved to Toronto. It started to get better. I was working in the music industry at this time. That's my previous career, like on the business side of the entertainment industry. And I went to Pilates because I was willing to try anything. I don't even know if we had Pilates where I was from at that time. I lived in Winnipeg. And I went there, and below the Pilates place was the Institute of Traditional Medicine. But I didn't know what that meant, right? Like I went to university, so I didn't know there were like these small little colleges, schools anywhere. So I just grabbed a flyer on my way out, whatever, didn't think much of it. Eventually my back started to get better, but I think it's because I was happier and I was like walking around. Toronto's more of a walking city. Winnipeg is a driving, more suburban kind of city. And so, one day I was doing yoga and I was able to do things that I couldn't do. And I was like, how come all of a sudden I could move? I'm like, I'm not high. So like, I was like, I only felt like, I'm like, I feel weird, but I don't do drugs. So like, what's going on? And so I don't know. It was just some weird thing. And then I literally went to my closet. I had a stack of flyers. This is like back in the day when like you get flyers for parties and stuff. And this one piece of paper was sticking out. And I grabbed this piece of paper from a stack. I can still see it now. And I grabbed this piece of paper, and it's for the Institute of Traditional Medicine. So I'm just like, what is this place? So I'll email them. I'll tell them like, my used to have this back injury. Now it's getting better. I don't know. Like I want to get it checked out or something. They're like, oh yeah, come by. So I went by. I did my appointment. They're like, we think you should do acupuncture. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. I'm like, okay, whatever. I've already been here for an hour. Let's just do this. And I did it. And I finished the treatment, got off table. I bawled my eyes out. I could not stop crying. And I was like, oh my God, they're going to come back in here and they're going to think I'm like the biggest weirdo. And they came back and it was like uncontrollable. And like, they're like, sometimes your pain can be emotional as well as physical. And again, like I was a very sciencey math person. And I was like, yeah, okay, emotional pain locked in your body, whatever you say. And they're like, no. And then they showed me the gallbladder channel and I was like, okay. And then I went home and I researched online. I don't know what the website was, but I can see the images of it. And I know that I've been on that site a lot because I just know they're the only ones that have those drawings. And I was just like, what is this? And that was it. I was like, I'm quitting my job that night. I was just like, I didn't know I was going to be an acupuncturist, but I knew that I was not going to continue in entertainment. And so I quit my job, and then I had other health problems after that. I had colitis and this and that and whatever. And then I continued with acupuncture, but that's how I found it. And then after that year, I was just like, okay, I'm just going to stop reading these books and I'm just going to go to school.
So when I reached out to you being like, I've been doing all this research, like, tell me all the details of your life so I could decide if this is the right move for me. You're just like, damn, this girl really like can't make a decision like quick enough. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah, I've always lived my life like that. And I still live my life like that, just a little bit on the edge, but I'm also Sagittarius. And so, yeah, I had no plan. I was just like, oh, I'm quitting. I'm going back to school. I'm doing this. I was also young. I was like 20, let's see, 24, 25. You know, it's not like I was in my 30s and I had a mortgage. So yeah, I think a lot of people ask questions. I think it's fair.
So I want to shift gears actually to talk about your practice because you are very well known for your focus on cosmetic acupuncture, fertility, and digestive issues, amongst many other things. As I was reading some of your other interviews, I noticed that you talked about how lifestyle, societal expectations, relationships, workplace environments are taking a toll on women's health, self-esteem, stress, and mental health. I'd love to hear about, what you're seeing in practice and how do you kind of apply, principles of Chinese medicine and also some of these focus areas to what it is that women are coming in with into your practice.
I started noticing a change in what women were coming in for. I'd say about like 8 or so years ago, when I guess cosmetic acupuncture did start picking up for me. But I also noticed how, or maybe I was just noticing how like women were being treated at work. And so I guess there were corporate industry changes, and it seemed like, and then as time went on, it was more and more. I'm sure many people can relate, people doing the work of 2 jobs, right? Someone went on mat leave. So now I'm doing Sarah's work. And then, maybe Sarah doesn't come back, but they didn't hire someone to replace Sarah. And then it's like, okay, well, Jessica's doing it anyway. So let's just let her do that. And then this like constant stress, and then kind of came social media. And the increased self-awareness of what we're looking like. And that obviously progressed as well, social media plus celebrity culture. And then in the past few years, that really changing with cosmetic acupuncture as well. And people just wanting to look better, but not wanting to use Botox or filler or anything like that. They wanted a natural approach. And that's where Chinese medicine really fills a very, very, very nice gap.
So for people who aren't familiar with cosmetic acupuncture, what is it?
So cosmetic acupuncture uses very thin, sterile needles on your face, which create a micro trauma. And when we take those needles out, it stimulates the body's healing response. So it has to send more fresh blood to the area, bringing red blood cells to the area, white blood cells to the area, right? Which kill any kind of like free radicals or bacteria that might be under the skin. Most importantly, that micro trauma created by all these like tiny, tiny, tiny holes, they need to be repaired. And the only thing that can repair them is a protein. And that protein is collagen. So the needles are naturally bringing collagen to your face and we're controlling where it's going, as opposed to ingesting collagen, which is also good, but it's not necessarily going to go to your face, right? It's going to go to where you're needed in your body first before it's going to come to your face. We're just controlling that.
So how is that, I guess, different from Botox and or microneedling?
So Botox is all about freezing, right? So while we're still about moving and bringing energy and blood and circulation and nutrients to the skin, plus, using good skincare, Botox is all about don't move your face and you won't get wrinkles. That's not necessarily wrong. That's true. If you don't move your face, you're not really going to get lines, but your muscles will weaken over time and they're going to atrophy. I use the analogy a lot of kind of like, if you break your leg or your arm and you have a cast on, you didn't use your arm. And yes, it is the cast applying pressure, but when you take that cast off, your muscle is weak, right? And there's a visual difference to it, and it feels different. There's no chi, there's no blood that's been going through there. And that's essentially what Botox doing on a smaller level, but to the muscles of the face. Microneedling, same, but different. Yeah, like it's using needles. They are creating a micro trauma. I just say it's a bit more aggressive. They are able to put serums in right away after. It's less holistic in that there's no body acupuncture points. They're not really concerned about anything internal. I don't think it's bad. Also makes sense from a scientific perspective. It is what it is. I haven't gotten it done personally myself. I'm afraid. But I don't think it's bad and there's something to be afraid of. I think, I've seen people go and they're happy with it. This kind of going back to your earlier question about like, how do you blend the Western with the kind of more traditional or Eastern medicine, if you will? A lot of my patients ask like, well, can I do Botox and do this? And I'm like, yeah, you can. You just might have to wait longer after, and you can keep doing it as you do this. But and I just say, I'm like, what'll be cool is to see how much less you'll need to go, or how much when you do go, you won't need as much Botox. And they know that I don't judge them for it. I'm like, you want to do it, do it. At least they're doing like half and half. That's cool.
So how does Chinese medicine think about skin in general? And, when I talk about skin, like we talked specifically about aging. So maybe we start there, but, there's like aging, there's acne, there's eczema, like there's just so many issues when it comes to skin. Starting with aging, like what is the Chinese medicine point of view on, for example, wrinkles and things like that? Is there like a perspective?
That is a pretty large question, because then you're like going into like, how detailed do you want to go, right? Certain lines relate to certain organs, relate to certain things. Overall, I would say, what does Chinese medicine say about wrinkles and aging is that, yeah, it's a natural part of life. If you were getting a lot of lines earlier in your age than you should, right, then there would be some kind of likely blood, qi, kidney, maybe even a Jing deficiency. It's never looked at as something bad to stop, but maybe just something that's going to happen and it's embraced, right? Because it's, again, part of the cycles. It's part of a human pattern. Like you said, is to age. It's all coming for us. It's very normal. And so Chinese medicine just kind of rolls with it. And if you eat well, and you take your Chinese herbs and you have a good amount of blood and qi in your life and balanced emotions, you age gracefully. And that's like such a big part of it.
So shifting gears to another skin complaint that is very common. I just watched your series of stories about the zit stickers. I definitely need one. I'm like, oh, right here. I got one too. But I'm curious, like, what is the Chinese medicine point of view on acne?
Some general like physiology patterns from Chinese medicine for acne is heat, right? I would say number one, heat, toxins in the blood, dampness. So heat because it's red and inflamed. Heat because it's coming out through the skin, which means it's some kind of inside internal heat, and it's coming out to the skin to cool down. Same thing, you could say eczema, psoriasis as well. That's why a lot of acne looks red and angry. Western perspective is inflammation. And then the dampness is like usually the more pus-filled acne, right? Like, what is pus except for like a literal physical manifestation of dampness, just like mucus is, just a little bit more condensed. I know it sounds gross, but it is. And so like, where's that excess dampness coming from? Likely diet, I should say. And I'd say those are the biggest things is with acne is like, you're looking at heat for sure, blood toxins, dampness. Things are trying to get out.
So speaking of diet, you actually had a pretty viral reel about how smoothies and salads are maybe not for everyone. I think the reel was like, what will I get a lot of hate for? And then you basically said that. I was like, oh, she goes. So can you please tell us what is the whole deal with the smoothies and the salads?
Yeah. So in Chinese medicine, everything should be warm and cooked. That's just like the baseline existence of everything. We have qi and everything that goes into your body should be warm and cooked. And the reason for that is we have something called a digestive fire, and that fire is constantly burning. And that is like, I would say again, the Western equivalent, like how good your enzymes are working, how good your hydrochloric acid is to break down and absorb your foods. And so if you're drinking cold water, cold salads, food from the fridge, too much raw and that kind of thing, you're slowly and slowly putting out that fire. Food's going to stick around. You're going to build up toxins. You're going to feel bloated. And, and you might not notice it right away, but in a couple of years, you might notice it in 5 years, 10 years. That's the thing. All these little decisions we make add up when it comes to your health. So avoiding those things is better, especially if you live in a colder climate. You can get away with stuff if you live somewhere warm, like maybe where you are right now. Or let's say you live in like LA where it's dry and hot, so everything's in moderation. Or maybe even here in the summer, I might have like some raw juice and stuff. I still let it sit. I don't have it cold, but, yeah, that's it. You're just putting out your digestive fire. And I just can't, I've helped so many people get rid of bloating by getting off those crazy smoothies.
So what do you recommend people have for breakfast, especially for your on-the-go clients?
Okay, so here's another thing. A lot, like the same way that I don't have the judgment on the Botox alongside cosmetic or whatever face treatments people want to do, I don't have a lot of judgment when it comes, or strictness, I should say, when it comes to the diet, because people don't have time. I cannot sit there and tell my patients to make a congee every week, because first of all, congee to them is just like so out there to eat rice in the morning, right? Like if they're like a typical American Canadian kind of person. So maybe they'll try it a couple times. And so I'm just like, just eat warm and cooked. So I'm like, okay, just like make oatmeal, make a big batch, and then just like, warm it up. I'm not big on a microwave, but I try to be like, warm it up on the stove. That also doesn't take a long time. If you're going to have a piece of toast, have a piece of toast, right? Like I'm not like, unless they're like gluten-free or whatever, then they can get gluten-free bread and stuff. But it's just like a lot of people actually just need something small in the morning. Not everybody needs to eat breakfast as their biggest meal. So again, for the smoothies, if that doesn't work with your internal clock, then, that whatever, let's say you put bananas, strawberries, blueberries, spinach, and like coconut water. Okay. You would never eat that much food in the morning. If morning's not your vibe, morning's not my vibe. My biggest meal for me and my personal clock is between 12 and 2 p.m. So eating something small in the morning is perfect for me. And that's why if I did have a smoothie in the morning, I'd be so sick. One, my body is not awake to digest it, which doesn't really go with TCM, right? But it goes with me. And I've already figured that out. And so that's where I kind of just have the flexibility.
There's so many people who really struggle with any sort of like rigid set, do this, don't do that. And yeah. So wait, what do you eat in the morning out of curiosity?
Sure. Yeah. I don't eat a lot in the morning. I might have a piece of toast with like almond butter, maybe some blueberries on it. I might have like if it's really busy and I don't feel like eating, but I know I should have something, I might just have like a few crackers. Sometimes if I have done meal delivery that week, because it was a really busy week, there might be like some protein pancakes and I just put one like in the toaster. Like it's just whatever works. I don't know if you listened to the Organic Olivia podcast I did with her, but that was a big thing that we talked about, where it was like, when one of my Japanese acupuncturists is like, you just eat white bread. He's like, just eat it and see what happens. And changing my diet and eating more refined foods, which are like the quote unquote bad foods for you, actually fix my digestive system. And I don't talk about it that much because I'm just not ready for the backlash of like, how could you eat white bread and how could it have helped you? I might talk about it with my patients and, I'm telling you, and I put it on her podcast, but I rarely talk about it on my Instagram because I don't know what I'm going to do with all the questions.
That should be your next reel. Like you should reuse that same, like, what would you get a lot of hate for? And
Yeah.
boom, like engagement through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll never
That's
forget when I had that slice of toasted white bread when my Japanese teacher, acupuncturist, was like, the other foods are too complicated. Just have this and see how you feel. And I was so happy. It was so good. I'll never forget it. And like, we're talking about like crap white bread. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was like Wonder Bread, because I probably got it from like the convenience store or something. Like, it was trash. Like,
I feel like you will be inspiring a whole new movement, like a whole generation of people. I also know who, like some of the people that'll be listening to this, like, people who definitely are like, whoa, like with their diets, they're going to probably just be so inspired. Go out tomorrow, get the white bread. It'll go off the shelves.
I just remembered something else I eat for breakfast. Sometimes I get the Nature's Valley, like the healthy Eggos of theirs, and sometimes I'll just eat one of those. When I got that message from my teacher and I chilled out on being strict about my diet, I cannot tell you how much happiness that brought. I used to eat so clean and so perfect, and it actually is just, for me, brought more stress and anxiety. I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And when I chilled out, oh my God, my life was so much easier. And then I was happier.
Well, like, I mean, emotions are linked to like, your digestion and disease. So it does ultimately make sense. So I also selfishly, since I have you here, as like a woman who is in her early 30s, like there are, in terms of some of the things that you probably see with your patients, you probably have a lot of people that are, in this age range that are either like, still dealing with PMS and like hormonal things, or they're prenatal or they're postnatal. And I feel like I would love to just have you talk a little bit about like what that cycle looks like in Chinese medicine, especially like the prenatal cycle and postnatal cycle.
So what I tell my patients who are, let's just start with the trying to conceive, whether they're trying and there might be some fertility concerns or not, or they're just trying just to see what happens. I always tell them, I'm like, you need to start thinking about yourself like you're an incubator, which means you're always warm and covered. Your feet are warm, they're covered, your food is warm. I'm like, you've all seen science experiments where like, eggs under these like hot red lamps. I'm like, okay, that's you now. And so you need to make your body warm like an incubator. You're going to be growing something, hopefully. And then it's like the warm, nourishing foods and the soups and the stews and all that. Blood building, of course, essential. And I think also boosting the immune system. I think people forget about that. I think that's something I learned from my Japanese teacher, different from the one I was just speaking about with the diet. That immune system is everything, and immune system, and I think in fertility and trying to conceive, is important. If your body is constantly fighting stuff, it's not going to think that it might not think that it's a habitable place for something to grow in, right? No, we're too busy. We got a viral overload here. We got too much bacteria here. We can't, take anything else on right now. So I think that, reducing inflammation, improving immune system, blood circulation, you're the incubator. Those are kind of my principles about it.
So, by the way, I feel like I need to put in like a disclaimer just in case, like my mom's listening to this. Like, I'm not trying right now. So just throwing that out there, it's like my mom, my future mother-in-law, they're just like, oh, wow, like inside scoop at this point. So for women that are in that stage where they are either trying or, they're just looking to like keep their bodies and like their, feminine, like their female system working optimally, like what are there things that we should be looking for?
Yeah. So that's an interesting point, right? Like about truly in Chinese medicine, and really it should be taught this way. Your period should come and go and nothing changes. That's it. Nobody's like that. Very rare. You don't cry, you don't get emotional, you don't get cramps, you don't get cravings. All of those signs are imbalances. Adding to that list, horrible cramps, irregular flow, super heavy, all of those things are signs that, yeah, something is imbalanced in the body. It's so rare for a woman to have a period like that here. I think I would say what a normal, as in the majority, is you have cramps, you have PMS, you probably have breast tenderness, and your cycle's anywhere, you're probably around like 28 to 30 days. I'd say that's probably the majority of what's going on. But that is actually not what should it be like at all. And, like speaking frankly about myself, I don't luckily like get cramps and stuff like that. And I remember the first time, and I don't remember being in high school or in university and anyone ever talking about that until I went to school for Chinese medicine. And I came to school one day and this girl was like keeled over desk, like, like head down. And I was like, oh, I won't say her name just in case, but, so-and-so. I'm like, what's wrong? And she's like, I have cramps. She must have wanted to kill me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like an idiot, like a complete idiot. And she's like, I have period cramps. And I was like, oh, I'm like, and I was like, to the point where you need to put your head down. I didn't say that part. That part was in my head. I didn't know. I had to learn through school that happened. And then I really learned in my practice. And I was like, what's going on? None of my friends, I came from a small city and I wondered if it was a small city, big city thing, but I thought it was very fascinating. But that's really, you're not really supposed to have any issues. The issues are the signs.
Wow. Okay, so this elusive state could be real. Like this floors me. I mean, when I first got my cycle, it was actually just a quick story. Like my mom was out of town the one weekend that she was like ever out of town. My like entire childhood, and she would feed us like relatively healthy food. My mom was out of town. My dad was taking care of us. We were eating fried chicken and pizza every night. And I had such bad cramps and I started bleeding. I thought I was dying. Like I thought I was dying because of the pizza. Yes, from the junk food. And it was like so bad. And like, so it's just so insane to imagine like a completely different state, TMI for everybody out there. But yeah. So, okay. So those are the signs and kind of some of the things.
But wait, can I just
interrupt
for a second? But what's interesting to me is that, you don't have to tell me or all of us, how old you were, but you didn't know that was your period.
No.
So you didn't learn it in school?
No, I did
not. Or
you
were maybe too young yet?
I did not learn it in school. And I also just didn't think, like, it wasn't top of mind. Like it, obviously like my mom talked to me about it, but for some reason, like I didn't really have like an idea
that the connection.
Yeah, I didn't make the connection. Yeah, I was 14.
Interesting.
I was 14. I did not.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sounds like that's like a pretty good age according to Chinese medicine. So I know this now. But yeah, that's just so crazy to me. Okay, I could literally go on and on and on, but I want to be mindful of your time. So I have just a couple of questions before we wrap. And one of them is a personal one. And I'm going to throw at you what my professor actually threw at us this week, which is how do you integrate yin and yang into your life?
My life is very young. I'm a very busy person, but I do balance it out. So I can get a lot done in a day. And I think people think I work all the time, but that's not true. But I'll work a longer day. So I'll work a few hours and before I go to clinic, and then I eat and watch TV for like half hour. I love to watch TV. So like I eat and watch TV. That's very yin for me. Then I go to work. Acupuncture is very yin for me. I'm an extrovert, right? So for me to be with people just one-on-one and being very calm and chill, that's very yin for me. And then I come home, and then maybe depending on the time, let's say I eat or I'll just have a little snack or something. And then I chill out for again. And then I do go to bed late, which I know is also very not Chinese medicine, but it works for my clock. And then I can work again from like 11 to like maybe like 1 in the morning. So the day seems long and a lot gets done, but there are a lot of breaks in between. So it's actually a quite balanced day. It's like work, recharge, as opposed to go hard from the minute you wake up to 7 at night, and then you want to just crash and you're brain dead until you go to sleep. Do you know what I mean? That's how I'd say I bring it into my personal life, because I figured out what works for me.
I feel pretty inspired, actually, because I feel my life is very young as well. I don't feel like I'm balancing it. Actually, a classmate and I, we were talking about how we absolutely need to figure out how to practice what it is that we're about to be preaching. But I love your breakdown of how you're integrating the two. And I'll tell you as well, like, it does look like you work all day online.
Yeah, I know it does, but I don't at all. Also, school is all young, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just young. You're just like constantly using your mind, writing essays, maybe drawing out your notes, whatever. Like, it's a young time. Yeah. It's hard to balance.
How did you balance when you were in school?
I didn't go out much. Yeah, I did. I didn't go out much. I didn't have a lot of money. And I worked and I also went to school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wasn't partying, and I didn't really I don't remember really going out that much. Very little.
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's us right now.
I really like being in school. Like, I was always quite academic. Like, that worked for me. So I didn't feel like I needed to balance it because it wasn't hard for me. Yeah. But that's because my brain works well in that kind of an atmosphere.
Well, you're very lucky. I will give you that.
I'm not really a creative type. Yeah, I think it attracts a lot of creative types, and I think they struggle more with the schooling aspect of it, because you're taking something creative and you're putting in a kind of grading, pragmatic way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's normal to feel that way.
All of my classmates listening to this will be like, oh my God. I mean, there is that one that like reads and then knows everything. So yeah, that rare human over there. But everybody else will definitely appreciate the insights on how to balance the yin and yang. So for folks out there who want to connect with you, where can everybody find you?
Pretty much on Instagram. I'd say that's the best place. My Instagram handle is 6BabeBeauty. That's the name of my online store. So 6, the number, BABE, then beauty.
Awesome. And we're going to link all of that as well. And then before we wrap, are there any kind of messages that you want to share with anybody, with the audience, about Chinese medicine or about balancing their yin and yang or anything at all?
Try your best to stay away from cold water. It might be hard, but it will really can change a lot of things for you in your health long term that you might not even realize. And if you haven't tried acupuncture, just go once. You really have nothing to lose. If you don't feel like you feel anything, then fine, you just tried it. But it's so good for you, and it can give you something that really I don't think anything else can. The only thing that could come close is meditation, but it's not quite the same even. That's in its own category. And then for the students, because I love the acupuncture students, especially for first years, I would say you should learn your acupuncture points. And I talked about this just the other day on Insta, like your alphabet. Learn the basics like an alphabet, like you're learning a new language, and then worry about piecing it together like you're creating art or music. You learn the music notes first, and then you write the song. You learn all those different kinds of paints and what the paintbrushes do, and then you paint your picture. Just get your basics first down pat, like you know it inside out, and then you can create whatever treatment plan you want.
I'm totally copying that method, by the way, as a student, because it's so much to learn. And that was just such incredible advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And who knows, you might get your acupuncture session and then quit your job and change your career.
Maybe it's happened. I've heard it happen to a couple of people.
Just a few, some very famous ones.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Nourish. If you loved my conversation with Amrit, please check out the show notes to connect with her. Also, breaking news, but I've included in my show notes a waitlist link for Amrit's always sold out Gua Sha Masterclass. If you want to learn and implement tangible, proven Chinese medicine techniques for healthier skin, this is a class you will not want to miss. As I mentioned, it is always sold out, so be sure to sign up on the waitlist. I just signed up myself. That's it for this time. See you next time, and thanks for tuning in.